Volume 2, Part 6 of Herodotus's Histories. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Histories, Volume 2, by Herodotus of Halicarnassus. Translated by E.D. Godley. Volume 2, Part 6. So the herald went to carry this message to Darius, but the Scythian kings were filled with anger when they heard the word slavery. They then sent the division of the Scythians, to which the Sauromatae were attached, and which was led by Scopacis, to speak with those Ionians guarding the bridge over the Ister. As for those of the Scythians who remained behind, it was decided that they should no longer decoy the Persians, but attack them whenever they were foraging for provision. So they watched for the time when Darius's men were foraging, and did as they had planned. The Scythian horse always routed the Persian horse, and when the Persian cavalry would fall back in flight on their infantry, the infantry would come up to their aid, and the Scythians, once they had driven in the horse, turned back for fear of the infantry. The Scythians attacked in this fashion by night as well as by day. Very strange to say, what aided the Persians and thwarted the Scythians in their attacks on Darius's army was the braying of the asses and the appearance of the mules. For, as I have before indicated, Scythia produced no asses or mules, and there is not in most of Scythia an ass or a mule, because of the cold. Therefore the asses frightened the Scythian horses when they brayed loudly, and often, when they were in the act of charging the Persians, the horses would shy in fear if they heard the asses bray, or would stand still with ears erect, never having heard a noise like it or seen a like creature. The Persians thus gained very little in the war, for when the Scythians saw that the Persians were shaken, they formed a plan to have them remain longer in Scythia, and remaining, be distressed by lack of necessities. They would leave some of their flocks behind with the shepherds, moving away themselves to another place, and the Persians would come and take the sheep, and be encouraged by this achievement. After such a thing had happened several times, Darius was finally at a loss, and when they perceived this, the Scythian kings sent a herald to Darius with a gift of a bird, a mouse, a frog, and 5 arrows. The Persians asked the bearer of these gifts what they meant, but he said that he had only been told to give the gifts and then leave at once. He told the Persians to figure out what the presents meant themselves, if they were smart enough. When they heard this, the Persians deliberated. Darius's judgment was that the Scythians were surrendering themselves and their earth and their water to him, for he reasoned that a mouse is a creature found in the earth, and eating the same produce as men, and a frog is a creature of the water, and a bird particularly like a horse, and the arrows signified that the Scythians surrendered their fighting power. This was the opinion declared by Darius, but the opinion of Gobirus, one of the 7 who had slain the Magus, was contrary to it. He reasoned that the meaning of the gifts was, "Unless you become birds, Persians, and fly up into the sky, or mice and hide in the earth, or frogs and leap into the lakes, you will be shot by these arrows and never return home." The Persians reasoned thus about the gifts. But when the first division of the Scythians came to the bridge, the division that had first been appointed to stand on guard by the Maean lake, and now had been sent to the Ister to speak with the Ionians, they said, "Ionians, we have come to bring you freedom, if you will only listen to us. We understand that Darius has directed you to guard the bridge for 60 days only, and if he does not come within that time, then go away to your homes. Now then, do what will leave you guiltless in his eyes as in ours, stay here for the time appointed, and after that leave." So the Ionians promised to do this, and the Scythians made their way back with all haste. But after sending the gifts to Darius, the Scythians who had remained there came out with foot and horse and offered battle to the Persians. But when the Scythian ranks were set in order, a rabbit ran out between the armies, and every Scythian that saw gave it chase. So there was confusion and shouting among the Scythians. Darius asked about the clamor among the enemy, and when he heard that they were chasing a rabbit, he said to those with whom he was accustomed to speak, "These men hold us in deep contempt, and I think now that Gobirus' opinion of the Scythian gifts was true. Since, then, my own judgment agrees with his, we need consider carefully how we shall return to safety." To this Gobirus said, "O king, I understood almost by reason alone how difficult it would be to deal with these Scythians, but when I came here I understood even better, watching them toying with us. Now then, my advice is that at nightfall we kindle our campfires in the usual way, deceive those in our army who are least fit to endure hardship, and tether all our asses here, and ourselves depart, before the Scythians can march straight to the Ister to break up the bridge, or the Ionians take some action, by which we may all be ruined." This was Goberius' advice, and at nightfall Darius followed it. He left the men who were worn out, and those whose loss mattered least to him, there in the camp, and all the asses too tethered. His reasons for leaving the asses, and the infirm among his soldiers, were the following: the asses, so that they would bray; the men, who were left because of their infirmity, he pretended were to guard the camp while he attacked the Scythians with the fit part of his army. Giving his order to those who were left behind, and lighting campfires, Darius made all haste to reach the Ister. When the asses found themselves departed by the multitude, they brayed the louder for it, and the Scythians heard them and assured that the Persians were in the place. But when it was day, the men left behind perceived that Darius had betrayed them, and they held out their hands to the Scythians and explained the circumstances. They, when they heard this, assembled their power in haste, the 2 divisions of their horde and the 1 division that was with the Sauromatae and Budini and Galani, and made straight for the Ister in pursuit of the Persians. And as the Persian army was for the most part infantry and did not know the roads, which were not marked, while the Scythians were horsemen and knew the short cuts, they went wide of each other, and the Scythians reached the bridge long before the Persians. There, perceiving that the Persians had not yet come, they said to the Ionians, who were in their ships, "Ionians, the days have exceeded the number, and you are wrong to be here still. Since it was fear that kept you here, now break the bridge in haste, and go, free and happy men, thanking the gods and the Scythians. The one that was your master we shall impress in such a way that he will never lead an army against anyone again." Then the Ionians held a council. Miltiades the Athenian, general and sovereign of the Chersoniotes of the Hellespont, advised that they do as the Scythians said and set Ionia free. But Histiaeus of Miletus advised the opposite. He said, "It is owing to Darius that each of us is sovereign of his city. If Darius's power is overthrown, we shall no longer be able to rule, I in Miletus or any of you elsewhere, for all the cities will choose democracy rather than despotism." When Histiaeus explained this, all of them at once inclined to his view, although they had at first sided with Miltiades. Those high in Darius's favor who gave their vote were Daphnis of Abydos, Hippoclus of Lampsacus, Hierophantus of Parium, Metrodorus of Proconnesus, Aristagoras of Cyzicus, Ariston of Byzantium, all from the Hellespont and sovereign of cities there, and from Ionia, Stratus of Chios, Echius of Samos, Laudamus of Phocia, and Histiaeus of Miletus, who opposed the plan of Miltiades. As for the Aeolians, their only notable man present was Aristagoras of Cyme. When these accepted Histiaeus's view, they decided to act upon it in the following way: to break as much of the bridge on the Scythian side as a bowshot from there carried, so that they seemed to be doing something when in fact they were doing nothing, and that the Scythians not try to force their way across the bridge over the Ister; to say, while they were breaking the portion of the bridge on the Scythian side, that they would do all the Scythians desired. This was the plan they adopted, and then Histiaeus answered for them all, and said, "You have come with good advice, Scythians, and your urgency is timely. You guide us well, and we will do you a convenient service; for, as you see, we are breaking the bridge, and will be diligent about it, as we want to be free. But while we are breaking the bridge, this is your opportunity to go and find the Persians, and when you have found them, punish them as they deserve, on our behalf and on your own." So the Scythians, trusting the Ionians' word once more, turned back to look for the Persians, but they missed the way by which their enemies returned. The Scythians themselves were to blame for this, because they had destroyed the horses' pasturage in that region and blocked the wells. Had they not done, they could, if they had wished, easily have found the Persians. But as it was, that part of their plan which they had thought the best was the very cause of their going astray. So the Scythians went searching for their enemies through the parts of their own country where there was forage for the horses and water, supposing that they too were heading for such places in their flight. But the Persians kept to their own former tracks, and so with much trouble they found the crossing. But as they arrived at night and found the bridge broken, they were in great alarm lest the Ionians had abandoned them. There was an Egyptian with Darius whose voice was the loudest in the world. Darius had this man stand on the bank of the Ister and call to Histiaeus the Milesian. This the Egyptian did. Histiaeus heard and answered the first shout, and sent all the ships to ferry the army over, and repaired the bridge.